Welcome to
Good morning,
SR
all. Welcome
online
to
class.
SR online class.
Today we have Miss
Today,
Rega Yashodharan. She's an assistant professor, IHRD College of Applied Science, Karthikapalli. And today the subject is data warehouse modeling, data cube technology, and OLAP. And she's having 12 years of experience at various institutions.
experience at various institutions,
And she has completed
and
her
she has
MSc
completed
Computer Science
her MSc Computer Science
from MES
from
College, Nellore,
MES College, Nellore,
and her MTech in IT
and her
from
MTech
Karnataka
in
State
IT
Open
from
University,
Karnataka State Open University,
and she is UGC NET
and
holder
she is
also.
UGC NET holder also.
Welcome to the session, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
A very and a warm
Very
good
and
afternoon,
warm good
and
and
this academic session, as all of you
session,
know,
as all of you know.
all of you may be aware with basics of data mining, knowledge discovery, and the properties of data mining that are included in the module first of data mining and warehousing. So now I'm going to start lecture on data warehousing. Actually, what is a warehouse? And what is the difference between database and data warehouse? And these things always confuse us, right? So database is quite application oriented, and data mining, sorry, data warehousing is subject oriented. Simply, we can say that data warehousing is a collection of various data sources. We are going to study about basic concepts of data warehousing, data cube technology, OLAP, data warehouse implementation, classification. Various types of classification of data are there through various types of technologies, decision tree index based classification, rule based, and by propagation that we will study one by one. So our first slide deals with what is a data warehouse. Data warehouse, simply it can be said as a collection of various data collected from heterogeneous sources. That means we are having various sources of data collection. It may be flat files, it may be XML file, it may be a web-based application, it may be a database. So we can have a huge collection of data with this data warehouse. Then sometimes we may be confused, then what is a database? Actually, database is an organized collection of data, and it is mainly application oriented. And the main thing in data warehouse is it is subject oriented. So Bill Inman is known as the father of data warehouse. According to his definition, a data warehouse is subject oriented, integrated, time invariant, and non volatile collection of data for management decision making processes. So these four are considered as properties of data warehouse: subject oriented, integration, time invariant, and non volatile collection of data. Subject oriented means, suppose we are going through some business purposes, or we are taking some examples of some organization, whether may it is a restaurant management, or maybe it is a marketing business, or maybe it is a healthcare department, whatever it is. So these all may be based on some themes, and that theme is considered as subject. And that is the first property of a data warehouse, that it should be subject oriented. It should be related to some theme. And the next thing is integration. As we all know that if we are going through some business enterprises or some organization, so there should not be one team worker or two team worker like that. There should be a collection of teams. Suppose we are having some marketing organization, so there may be a sales department, there may be a purchase department, there may be a controlling authority, there may be a finance authority, there may be a HR department. So that marketing business will be consisting of all these departments, and there should be an integration of some departments working to achieve some aim. The next thing is time invariant. In the case of sales, we can say we are considering the analysis of sales report on daily basis or monthly basis or yearly basis like that. So in the case of some restaurant or hotel management, we are going through some seasonal changes. Likewise, how much sale we are having in the summer season, how much sale we are having in winter season, likewise. So we can say that the data warehouse is also a collection of huge amount of data, which is time invariant. And the last property is non-volatile collection of data. That means the data collected in data warehouse should not be updated, or there will be no changes made on the historical data. So that historical data, that is also related with data warehouse. In database, we are considering the data that is representing present data or almost active data, but data warehouse is dealing with historical data. So it may be very huge as compared to database. Even database is having data limit size up to gigabytes, and the data warehouse is having limit up to terabytes. So simply we can call data warehouse is a collection of sources of data from various heterogeneous sources. And that sources may be flat files, XML files, database, web-based application, whatever it is. It can be a collection of heterogeneous data. And according to this Bill Inman definition, it is subject-oriented, integrated, time-invariant, and non-volatile collection of data. So next is functions of data warehouse tools. The functions of data warehouse tools are mainly data extraction, data cleaning, data transformation, data loading, and refreshing. Data extraction means, as I said earlier, we are gathering data from multiple heterogeneous sources. So there may be many sources. As I said earlier, there may be XML files, web-based applications, some flat files, some databases. So we are collecting data, we are extracting data from such multiple resources. Data cleaning means we are having many sources and we are having collection of data from many sources. So there may be redundancy of data, there may be unwanted data. So we have to deal with each and every data carefully, and we have to clear data. That means we have to correct the errors in data. We have to remove redundancy in data. The third one is data transformation. That is the main step used in this data warehouse that we are going to study. That is ETL. That is extract, transform, and loading. Whereas transformation technology is there for converting the data received from different resources to a correct format that can be loaded in data warehouse. So we can collect data from different resources. It doesn't mean that every data should be perfect and every data should be error-free like that. So second step is for cleaning data, and then the third step is transforming data from legacy format to warehouse format, and using this extract transform tools. There are many extract transform tools. Some of them are Talent and Informatica like that. Then the next step is data loading. Data loading involves sorting of data, summarizing data, consolidating different type of data, checking its integrity, and checking whether the indexes are perfect, and checking the partitioning of data. So data loading involves, if you want to summarize some data, we can have a huge amount of data, so we can summarize it to a better manner such that it should be in a readable form. If you want to combine or consolidate some small amount of data together, then we can also do like that before loading into the data warehouse. And integrity and consistency checking, all these can be done in this procedure. And the last one is refreshing. It involves that data updating from data sources to warehouse. So main functionalities of data warehouse tools are extraction, then cleaning, then transformation, then loading, and then refreshing. And our next topic is data warehouse schema. As all of you may be aware of database schema. What is database schema? Database schema is a logical representation of an entire database. And for the database, we are dealing with this entity relationship diagram. I think all of you may be aware of it because this course is for MSc Computer Science, and I know that all may be computer science graduate and may be aware of entity relationship data dealing with database. So in this case, data warehouse, we are dealing with schema representation for data warehouse. There are mainly three types of schema: star schema, snowflake schema, and fact constellation schema. The star schema involves a central fact table and one table for each dimension, so that our fact table will be a main table which will be consisting only little bit of tuples, or we can say that little bit of attributes. Attributes will be the correct word, I think. So fact table, there will be a large central fact table and one table associated with each dimension. So every fact points to one tuple in each of the dimension and has additional attributes. Suppose we are having a product table as fact table, so we can deal with the product number as the primary key and the purchase number as the purchase ID of the purchase department, like that. So purchase table in this sense is considered as a dimension table for the fact table product, and the product fact table product ID is the main key for the fact table, and for the purchase ID will be the another primary key for this purchase table, and it will be acting as a foreign key in this star table. So next, the figure of the star schema is shown. It does not capture any hierarchies directly. So you can go through this figure. Fact table is considering the store key, product key, then period key, price, all these things. So product key is dealing with this another table that is known as product dimension. As I have said earlier, I have just mentioned another name. In that, I have considered fact table as the product table and this purchase table as the dimension table. But in the figure, 3-dimension tables are there. Fact table is including store key, product key, period key, price and units, and another time dimension, product dimension, store dimension. So each of the tuple in fact table is connected to another dimension table that I have said in my previous slide. So in this we are only having a central table, and other dimension table are related to either of the tuple presented in this fact table. Next slide. So second schema is snowflake schema. Snowflake schema is a variant of star schema. It is consisting of single, large, and central fact table and one or more tables for each dimension. In the previous case, we are only having a dimension table for one of the tuple in the central table, but now in the case of snowflake schema, we are having one or more tables for each dimensions, and dimension tables are almost normalized and split into another additional tables. This figure is shown in another slide. In this fact table is one of the centralized table, and we are having time dimension, product dimension as store dimension as we had in the star schema of previous slide. But the additional thing in this snowflake schema is one more dimension table is associated with store dimension table. That means it is the another elaboration of the dimension table. In the star schema, we are not having the elaboration or connection of another dimension tables with the previous one. But in the case of snowflake schema, we are having two tables connected each other, and they both are dimensions. So next is fact constellation. Fact constellation schema is another schema which is dealing with multiple fact tables sharing dimension tables. So this schema can also be considered as a galaxy schema, but its application is it's quite sophisticated. So that is illustrated in the figure. product dimension table and store dimensions table, but in the previous schemas, we didn't view two fact tables. But in the case of fact constellation, there are more than one fact tables, and that differentiates it from star schema and snowflake schema. Data warehouse modeling mainly deals with data cube, and then we are automatically leaded to this OLAP technology that we will be studying in the coming slides. So what is a data cube? Actually, data cube can be described as the multi-dimensional extension of two-dimensional tables. We can simply call that multi-dimensional view of data. That is known as data cube. And it can be considered as a collection of identical 2D tables stacked one upon another. So for data cubes, as I said, that it is a multi-dimensional view of data, and there are two categories of data: dimensions and measures. So always data cubes will be dealing with two categories of data: dimensions and measures. Dimensions include descriptive categories of data such as time and location. Suppose we are having a huge amount of data, and that data is considering some time and location, and that time and location will be categorized into dimensions. And the measures include, as we all know, measures may be some amount or some quantity, some facts or some numbers such as cost and or units of service that can be included in this measures. So dimension and measures in a diagrammatic way, so you can understand it easily. Time and location, product, and you can see that 174, that is a number, and that is representing the measure, that quantity, and the time and location is representing the dimensions. Okay, good, fine. So now we are dealing with data cube technology. As I said, the data is viewed in a multidimensional manner. So here the OLAP technology plays its role. Here the OLAP technology plays its role. What is meant by OLAP? Online analytical processing. Online analytical processing, and that it's having very importance in this data warehouse. You may be aware of OLTP, online transactional processing, and that is dealing with database, and OLAP technology is here with data warehouse. There are main 5 OLAP operations we are going to study. The first one is roll up, second one drill down, third one slicing, next dicing, and next pivoting or rotating. So we are going to study one by one. The first one is roll up. As I said, that data cube is a multidimensional view of data, and it is including dimensions and measures. So rolling up means climbing up a concept hierarchy for the dimension location, and that is illustrated in the figure below, how the rolling up concept I can deal with you. Next slide. Here the rolling up. You can view in the below diagram, there are 3 dimensions. The mobile modem, that means it is dealing with the types of some items, and the left one is time, Q1 in the some quarter basis, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and the next dimension is showing location, that is Chicago, New York, Toronto, and some other city like that. So basically, this is a normal representation of data cube, and when we are performing roll-up operations, it is rolling it up, and that is combining the locations into a country. It is combined into USA or Canada. And very simply, I can say that suppose here we are having this state Kerala, and we are representing some data representation of Kerala, this area wise or district wise or region wise, like that. But in this rolling up operation, it all may be combined, and it will be consolidated to only one data, that is of Kerala state. So rolling up means we are combining some cities or streets, and it is summarizing that data. we are summarizing the location here, and that is known as rolling up. And I think that the figure may help you to understand the concept easily. So next one is drill down. Drill down is the reverse operation of roll up. Actually, I said in the roll up, we are climbing up into the hierarchy. That means we are consolidating some level of data and elaborating. And in spite of elaborating it, we are making it smaller for representation. But in the case of drill down data, it is just doing the reverse operation of roll up. What it is doing that it is navigating the data from less detailed data to highly detailed data, and that will be shown in the coming slide, and very easily you can understand it. The figure is represented in the coming slide. Here also we have taken the example as we have taken in the previous slide. Time is there, location is there, and some items are there. So what we are doing is, before the drill down operation performed on the data cube, the time was represented in quarters only. That is Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And by performing drill down operation, you can see that Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 is elaborated into the whole months what we are having in a year: January, Feb, March, April, May, June, like that. So I think you have understood the difference between roll-up operation and drill-down operation. Roll-up operation is combining the small things and making it only a one thing. But in the case of this drill-down operation, it is elaborating the thing. It is navigating from low-level data to highly detailed data. So next we are going to study other operation, slicing. So slicing is, as we can see that we are slicing bread, or a big loaf of bread is there, we are slicing it, means we are making it into pieces. In the same way we are performing this operation, we are creating the subset of a multi-dimensional array. The term slice often refers to a two-dimensional page referred from a cube. It can be easily understood by the coming figure. I hope there is no more explanation needed. Suppose we have a multidimensional cube of data, and that can be represented as a stacking of two-dimensional data, as I have said in the earlier slides. Here in the slicing operation, so some of the data we are extracting in a sliced format, and that operation is known as slicing. Suppose there are more than the product, more than one products are there, more than one location is there, more than one time is there, and we are extracting some product according to some locations and according to some period of time from the huge set of multi-dimensional data, and that is known as slicing. So next is dicing. Dicing provides you the smallest available cube. Suppose we are having a large, huge amount of data cube, and we are selecting a subset of smallest available cube in it. That is known as dicing, and that is illustrated in the coming slide. Okay, location is there, product is there, time is there. Slicing, we are extracting only one set, but here we are extracting a cube-like manner set, or we can say that we are extracting a subcube from a main cube, and that is known as dicing. So next and the last OLAP operation is rotating and pivoting. It can be also in some text it is referred to as pivoting, and some text it is referred to as rotating. So rotating means we are changing the dimensional orientation of the report from the cube data. Suppose we are having many dimensions, so we are just rotating it. Suppose I think many of you have played that cube of making the same colors, green colors maybe there, red colors maybe there, and white, black, like that. And sometimes we are very confused how to change and how to make the cube of similar colors. Oh, then we are doing some rotating like that. So in the same manner, we are swapping the rows and swapping the columns, moving the one row dimension to other and moving the column dimension to other. That is known as rotating or pivoting operation, and that is illustrated in the coming slide. So left side, you can see that location, time, product have one XYZ dimension. And after rotating, the location is taking the place of time and time is taking the location of location. Okay. Okay. So these are the various operations. So OLAP technology is mainly implemented with this data warehouse. That is, its operations are done over this data cube. So it is also known as data cube technology. So there are mainly three types of OLAP server. OLAP servers are mainly implemented in this analytical process because our data warehouse deals with the analyzing mainly. Database is just collecting the data, just keeping it. We have to write queries to extract the data like that. But data warehouse is mainly dealing with the analysis of data. What is the difference between this just going through some queries and just extracting data and just analyzing data? In the database, we can consider, suppose we are taking the list of customers who are using ATM. That can be considered as a database activity. That is not an analytical processing. But if we are going through records of customers who are using a particular ATM or at a particular time, that means that the content that we want to retrieve from this data warehouse is very specific. And that's why it is known as analytical processing, and many OLAP tools are used for analyzing the process. So there are many servers, OLAP servers are there. Main three types of OLAP servers are relational OLAP, multi-dimensional OLAP, and hybrid OLAP. These servers are used by managers and analysts to make the information very interactive, fast, and consistent for processing. So first one is relational OLAP. Relational OLAP is dealing with relational databases. Relational databases that you all already know because you all guys have dealt with this Oracle SQL server like that, and you know what is the front end and what is the back end like that. So data warehouse, we are using relational OLAP for relational backend server and client. Front end tools are there. So there will be some navigation procedures there for dealing with front-end tools with this DBMS backend. So advantages of relations are there. It can handle large amount of data and time needed for loading data is very less. But the disadvantages is that its performance is quite slow compared with the other OLAP servers, and it requires very long query service for this large data size. The next one is multi-dimensional OLAP. As I have said, relational OLAP is dealing with relational database. Here, multi-dimensional OLAP, MOLAP is based on a native logical model that directly supports multi-dimensional data and operation. And that this server is directly supporting multi-dimensional data and operation because it doesn't need any mediator or any wrapper to bind up the front end tool with back end tool. So here the advantages, it is very fast and it is having very excellent performance and it can perform complex operations. The disadvantages with this, it can only handle limited amount of data and it requires additional investment too. So, but as compared with relational OLAP, it is very fast. And the hybrid OLAP is a combination of the previous two OLAP, and it is having some substantial quantities of detailed data in the relational table, while the aggregations are stored in the pre-calculated cubes. Means it is the aggregation of all pre-calculated cubes together with this relational table. So its performance is very much high because it is having the operation that directly on the multi-dimensional cube, and it can perform on this relational database too. It is providing very fast access and it balances the disk space requirement. And these are the two main advantages of HOLAP. So the main disadvantage is that its architecture is very much complicated. So generally we used to prefer this MOLAP because this HOLAP architecture is very much complicated. So next is data warehouse design and usage. So basically data warehouse design deals with two types of approaches for analyzing, reporting and data collection. That a top-down design approach and the bottom-up design approach. The top-down design approach is known as Inman. Inman, who is basically known as the father of data warehouse. So it is a data-driven approach as the information is gathered and integrated first, and then business requirements by subjects for building data marts are formulated. That means the information from various sources are gathered together and then it is combined and loaded. Then it is formulated into different data marts. All of you may know data mart. Data mart is oriented on a specific subject only. That can be described as a with a simple example. Suppose we are running a sales and marketing business. So the whole data warehouse may be including finance, HR, sales, marketing, purchase, investment, stock, all these things. That is known as data warehouse. But data mart will be dealing with only one specific area. So it may be subset of data warehouse. One data mart for dealing with financial purpose, other data mart for dealing with marketing purpose, other data mart for dealing with HR purpose, likewise that. So departmental wise subject oriented things are happening in this data mart. So a data warehouse. So from the in this top down approach, sources data is collected from different sources. It is integrated, it is loaded, and it is then distributed into building up different types of data marts. The advantages are that data marts are separately constructed from building this data warehouse, and then developing new data mart from the data warehouse is very easy. The next is disadvantages, that is this technique is inflexible to changing departmental needs and the cost of implementation is high. Why it is inflexible? Because already we have integrated this sources of data from various platforms, and then we are giving the result as data mesh. So after collection and after integration and loading, then we are building this data mart. So then flexibility of changing department is very much complex in this sense. So second one is bottom-up design approach, and that is also known as Kimball's bottom-up approach. In this approach is the same thing is happening in reverse. What in this data mart is created first from the various different sources, and then it is collected and loaded into a data warehouse. So in this sense, we can say that we can accommodate many more departments or many more data mart in this approach, and it can be combined and integrated together and later loaded into this data warehouse. So advantages is that it can be documents can be generated quickly and can be extended to accommodate new business units, and it is just developing new data marts and then integrated with other data marts. So we can develop as much as data mart we want to do and we want to organize in our business enterprise or whatever it is. So disadvantages is that the locations of the data warehouse and the data marts are reversed in the bottom-up approach. That I said earlier, means we are collecting data from various sources in the top-down, and then we are making we are loading into data warehouse, then we are making this data mart, and in this reverse process is going on. And the next topic is data warehouse implementation. Actually, data warehouse implementation needs a series of activities that are essential to create a fully functioning data warehouse. So suppose we are using this data warehouse, how can we use this data warehouse? Someone may be asking. So we can here data warehouse application may be anywhere, whether it is a health center, whether it is a banking industry, whether it is a investment and insurance sector, whether it is educational sector. So we are having its implementation everywhere. So it should be very specific so that we can categorize and classify this data and analyze the data properly. And the design of the data warehouse should be according to our business needs, because mainly this data warehouse is oriented for this business intelligence. Whatever the business and whatever the needs of the organization are there, on basis of that only we are designing our data warehouse, and on basis of that only we are selecting the approach for data warehouse making. So next diagram, which includes steps of implementation in data warehouse. So first step is dealing with requirement analysis and capacity planning, then hardware and software selection, then modeling, then physical modeling, then sources, then ETL, and populating data warehouse, then user application, and roll out the warehouse and application. These are some of the some of the main 9 steps included in data warehouse implementation. So first step is there, requirements analysis and capacity planning. That I said earlier that if our business is for some hotel management, so we may be requiring the details of food and details of how to treat the people, how to maintain the hospitality when a customer visits the hotel, like that. So and their accommodation and all these things. So it is dependent for hotel management. And if we are dealing with some healthcare, so we will be dealing with what are departments we can include in our healthcare data warehouse, and how much patients are coming in and how much are treated well, what is the feedback of the patient, and how can we improve our health department. And if there is a banking sector, then our requirement is based on the customer approaching our bank for a loan or for some other account opening, like that. So requirement analysis and capacity planning is very important, and the first and foremost step for implementing data warehouse. And the second one is hardware integration, based on our requirement, based on the organization's requirement, what we are doing, and on the basis of that only hardware and software is selected, and we are putting together to integrate the server storage needs and use software tools for its integration. The third one is modeling, as I said you earlier, what all business enterprise and what all the organization needs we are having. On the basis of that only we are performing the modeling. The next is physical modeling, and physical modeling means data warehouse, how the data is placed, how the data may be partitioned, what all the decision making procedures or techniques are there, and how we can index the data. Next one. And these are the main 4 steps that we have discussed. And the coming steps is sources. The information for the data warehouse is likely to come from several data warehouse. That I have said earlier also, we are not having only one single source of data. We are dealing with multiple source of data, because the data warehouse is not only dealing with active or present data, it should be dealing with it can deal with more than past 10 years data or 20 years data for improving in some organization, like that. So it depends on sources. And the next step is ETL. ETL is extract, transform, load. That in my very first beginning, I have told about it. Extract transaction tools are there. Some of the tools are this Talent and this Informatica, that is used in some business intelligence software for implementing this data warehouse, how we can extract data from various types of resources, and how we can transform it in a useful format, so that can be so that can be beneficial for the business organization. And the next one is populate the data warehouse. Data warehouse populating means we are having collected data adequately, and we have performed the ETL tools, how it can be gathered, how it can be structured in schema, and how it can be shown to the user. Next one is user application. This step contains designing and implementing applications required by the end users. So this includes how it can be user friendly. That means the application what we are going to perform for some business organization. So how can be useful for that end user. That is discussed in this step. and means suppose we are using some application software also. So we will be always eager to know that how the user can use it, whether it should be user friendly like that. So in this case, in this step, it is having steps including designing and implementing application required by the end user. And the next and final step is roll out the warehouse and application. Once the data warehouse has been populated and the end client applications tested, the warehouse system and the operations may be rolled out for the users community to use. Suppose a business enterprise have approved, has overall checked the data and the end client is satisfied with the performance and implementation testing of the data warehouse, then the operation may be rolled out for whole community to use that particular data warehouse. So I think our session about the basic concepts of data warehouse is completed. So our next topic is classification. Data classification is the process of organizing data into categories that make it is easy to retrieve, sort, and store for future use. That means we are dealing with huge amount of data. So data classification plays a very good role in this data mining and warehousing, where we can organize data according to our needs and how it can be sorted and retrieved and stored easily for future use. Suppose our data classification is concerned with some bank loan officer wants to analyze the data in order to know which customer are risky or which are safe. That means classification of customers. If many customers are approaching a bank manager for some loan, so what is the duty of the bank manager? He should be analyzing the previous record of the customer. What is his earning, or what are properties he holds? What is its capacity? So based on that only, the bank loan will be given to the particular customer. There are many methods for classifying data. The first one of them is decision tree induction. Decision tree means we are familiarizing it with a tree-like structure. There may be root node, there may be branches, and there may be leaf nodes. The internal node will be for testing an attribute, and each branch denotes the outcome of a test, and each leaf node holds a class label. The topmost node in the root is the topmost node in the tree is the root node. The following decision tree is for the concept by computer. Then there is coming diagram which deals with the decision tree, whether a person should buy computer or not. The first and foremost attribute for selection as the root node is given as age. So if we are dealing with the tuple, there may be an ID for customer, name is there, age is there. Other attributes will be their date of birth and its address, his phone number, all these things. So when we are having a tuple of a table, so there may be some of these attributes. So we can't select whole attributes as a root node. So we are here selecting the age as a main root node and root node, that is age. And according to the age, the person is categorized into 3 branches: young, middle-aged, senior. So if the young one is student, that is another attribute for selecting the person. If it is a student, no, then the outcome is no. That means we have decided not to give the computer. If the student is yes, then we have decided yes, we can permit the student to buy a computer. And if one is middle age, then yes. And if the senior age, then we will be checking his credit rating. If it is fair, no. If it is excellent, then we will be giving that computer. So the merits of decision tree induction is classification steps are very simple and it does not require any domain knowledge. Demerits are that it becomes very complex when we are dealing with huge amount of data. Then it is very difficult for us to draw such a tree and then make decisions like that. And the decision tree algorithm may not be an optimal solution for highly complex cases. The decision tree induction algorithm is shown in next slide. I am just summarizing the algorithm. We have to select some partition D class and some outcomes. What we are doing is we are creating a node N, and likewise I have said that if we are having a person as table, he may be having many attributes like person ID will be there, his name will be there, his address will be there, his age will be there, his phone number will be there, his mobile number will be there, other contact details will be there, his bank details will be there. All those things are presented as attribute in our decision. So we are not selecting whole attribute for whole attributes for main root thing. We are only selecting this age. So here we have done partition according to various classes. Suppose we are selecting the age as our main attribute, then we are going to the process that we have selected the age. So then we are doing categorization based on age, whether it is young, whether it is senior, or whether it is penetrating. And if we are categorized various branches, and in various branches also we can do more categorization until we get a yes or no as outcome. So it is explained in this algorithm only. We are selecting the attributes, and if the attributes is satisfying the same class, then we are giving our answers, yes or no decisions we have taken. And if the attribute is having another categorization, suppose we have selecting senior citizen, so there another categorization is there. The senior citizen may be safe or risky, and based on this bank balance or like that, we are again making the check if the bank balance is sufficient to buy a computer, or if it is not sufficient. And such categorization includes the attributes, subset of attributes like that. Then we are putting the outcome into the same class, and that is explained in the decision induction tree algorithm. Okay, fine. That is the decision tree algorithm. And next one is Bayes classification. All of you may have studied this Bayes probability in our school standard, 12th standard. We are studying this Bayes probability. So this Bayesian classification is based on Bayes theorem. Bayes classifications are statistical classifiers, and according to Bayes theorem, here we have using h or x as our variable, but during our 12th standard we have studied x or y, p of xy into px and divided by px. I think all of you may be aware of that, and the same principle is followed here for Bayes classification. So here we are selecting x as a data tuple and h as a hypothesis. So p of h bar x is equal to p of x bar h into p of x, the whole divided by p of x. Here we have to just note that x is a tuple and h is a hypothesis. So Bayes classification deals with Bayesian networks. Bayesian networks falls under the classification of probabilistic graphical modeling procedure that is utilized to compute uncertainties by utilizing the probability concept. So here the whole thing deals with this probability. So here the example, one directed acyclic graph is given, and it is predicting the lung cancer of a person, whether it is based on the family history or whether he is having any diseases, whether it is emphysema, dyspnesia, or whether he is a smoker. So it doesn't mean that every smoker is having lung cancer. Every person who is having any genetical history in family is having lung cancer. So these smoker and family history and other diseases can be considered as a probability of making lung cancer. It doesn't mean that it is completely making lung cancer. So such type of probability representing diagrams are known as Bayesian networks, and it is always represented using directed acyclic graph. And one more thing is in my mind as an example. Suppose it is raining. Now it is raining everywhere. Suppose it is raining and a dog in our house is barking. So it doesn't mean that every time it is raining and every time the dog is barking. There is a probability. Suppose 10 times rain is falling, only 5 times is dog is barking. So such type of the barking of dog is can be considered as a hypothesis here, and the raining may be considered as a main tuple here. I think you understood. So the thing which are not happening continuously, but sometimes frequently according to this rain. So that's why I have told you that this barking of dog is considered as a hypothesis when rain is there. It is not a continuous process that when always it is raining and always the dog is barking. So we can make probabilities there. So continuing this portion only, Bayes classification, the naive Bayesian classifiers are there. It is wholly based on Bayes theorem with an assumption of independence among predictors. Bayes theorem providing a way of calculating posterior probability P of C by X from P of C and P of X and P of X bar C. Look at the equation below, and the same equation is followed used as C instead of H, and X is same here. P of C by X is equal to P of X by C, P of C divided by P of X, and some more technical terms are there. P of X is the likelihood, the P of C by X is posterior probability, and the numerator is the class prior probability, and the denominator here is predictor prior probability. So every probability condition is included in this Bayesian classification. It is wholly dependent on Bayes theorem. The naive Bayesian classification. So next thing is rule-based classification. Likewise, you have studied this if-then rules for classification. So if it rains, then I will be taking an umbrella like that. So if condition is satisfied, then subsequently the then condition should also be there. So the if part of the rule is called rule antecedent or precondition, and the then part of the rule is called rule consequent. So if what we are specifying, that is known as antecedent or precondition, and the then part of the rule what we are specifying, that is known as rule consequent. So suppose we are having two or more conditions should be satisfied. So we are using the test by combining the attributes using logically. And suppose if age is equal to youth and student is equal to yes, then by computer is equal to yes. So here the antecedents are two, means the condition is based on two attributes. So we are using this and logically and when and operator is used, we are deciding whether it is able to buy a computer. So that is rule-based classification. And the last one is classification by back propagation. So back propagation is a neural network learning algorithm, and all of you are PG students, and you may be aware of what is the importance of neural networks in our current series, and many research-oriented works are going on this neural network application, and many of them are implementing this back propagation. Actually, it has been started by neurobiologists and psychologists to develop and test computational analogs of neurons. From where the neuron idea came, you all know that biologically neurons and nerves in our brain, it led to the idea of this artificial intelligence in neurons. Okay, so so during the learning phase, the network learns by adjusting the weights so as to be able to predict the correct class label of the input tuples. So many input tuples will be there, many other second stage hidden layers will be there. Then we will be getting the output. So when we are giving some input to something, and we are processing it to some operation, and we are getting output. Suppose we are not getting that output what we want, then we are again adjusting the weights of the hidden variables so that we can achieve a actual output. Suppose we are doing this 1 plus 4 plus 2 is 7. 1 plus 4 plus 2 is 7, but we are not through some operations we are not achieving 7, we are only nearing 5. Then we will in between we should be adjusting some weights to achieve our actual value 7. So performing some it is not used in the case of addition normal, this 1 plus 4 plus 2. We are using this neural network concept in highly highly in-depth areas when we have to find out something with that much quality and intensity. We are using this back propagation. So advantages of neural networks that its ability for classifying this untrained data, and it is high tolerance to noisy data, and it is well suitable for continuous valued inputs and outputs, and successful on a wide range of real world data. Then we are giving continuously valuing, and we are checking the outputs continuously whether our inputs are matching with the output that we are going to get. next next is disadvantages of neural network. Actually, it is taking long training time, and it requires a large number of parameters, and it is poor interpretability. Because long training time is needed. As I said, that it is not used for simple calculation. It may be dealing with huge amount of data and a huge amount of inputs and hidden data, and for the accurate outcome. So backpropagation algorithm in simple form is given in this slide. Inputs are X, arrived through pre-connected paths. Input is modeled using real weights W. Calculate the output for every neuron from the input layer to the hidden layer to the output layer. So the calculate the error. So when we are getting an output like this, I have said you that suppose you want to get the output 7, but you are getting only 5. So you will be calculating the difference. The 7 minus 5 is equal to 2, and you are adjusting the weights of variables according to this. How the weight should be adjusted to the hidden variable, so that I will be getting the actual output 7. So such thing is done repeatedly using the back propagation, because we are giving input, it is going to the hidden layer, it is going to the outcome, and when we are taking this output, we are getting 7. But we have to reach. We didn't get 7. We have yet got 5. Again, we are going back. We are training our algorithm. We are again getting 6. Again, we are going back. Again, we are training our hidden layer, adjusting the weights, and again, and at last we have got 7. So such repetition of processes of adjusting the weights to the variables. We are just selecting the output, we are comparing it with the actual output, we are finding out the error, and we are thinking how to delete this error, and how to adjust this weight with the hidden layer, so that I could get my actual output. So for getting this actual output in the data classification in neural networks, we are using this back propagation. Okay. So I think my session is concluded. I have completed all the sessions, including DataCube, OLAP servers. This is what I have said. Inputs are there, and the hidden layer is dealing with some more variables. And this hidden layer, we are having base variables. And finally, we are output by going back and again creating the weights and the variables like that. So I think all of you got my
session. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the extra effort taken for conducting this session.